Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, brought to you by the Wealthy Speaker School. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson. Today we're talking about what many of you probably saw as a problem over the dinner table at maybe Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, depending on when this airs. Today we're talking about money and politics, and we're going to throw in some speaking in there as well. My special guest has been right in the thick of things, and his name is Andrew Busch. I'm so excited to introduce him to you. Welcome, Andy. Welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure and an honor to be on. I've listened to so many of these things. It's weird to be on with you, but this is great.
Well, first, I want you to kind of tell us what you do today in your work, and then we'll circle back to what you were up to last year, because that is mighty intriguing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've had an interesting career, no doubt. Well, what I do now is clients hire me to provide an objective, and I want to emphasize objective viewpoint on what's going on in the economy and how it's impacted. So when they hire me, they want certain outcomes, and these are the outcomes they want. They want to understand the economy and what's driving the changes. They want to walk out with and I provide them with a new business tool that they can use and share with their clients to understand the economy. So that's pretty powerful too. And then the last thing I do to help clients is really make them feel better about the future and how to prepare for it. So that things don't take them off guard, and that they can calm down and really focus on what their business is. So those are the three outcomes that clients mainly hire me to provide.
Okay. And you have a long list, which includes, studying the economy for years and years and years. And so you are what I would call the great calmer downer. Every time I talk to you, you've been my client. We'll talk about you had spent some time working in Washington. So you were my client pre-Washington, and then you came out of Washington with a whole different set of ideas, which was even more intriguing and added more things that were compelling to your talk. But as the great calmer downer, I really want to emphasize, we put politics right in the title here, but we are not coming to you listeners with an agenda of any kind.
Right.
We're actually trying to get that whole idea of what if this happens, or what if this happens, or what if this happens in politics? How does that affect all of us in the speaking world? So let's circle back and talk about the job that you took. We were actually just seeing quite a bit of traction in your speaking business when you came to me and said, I have this opportunity and I don't know if I can say no to it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I had hired you to be my coach, and we had really seen the business develop over the couple of years that we worked together, and it really started to accelerate into 2016. And really back then, you and I decided that the best way to approach this topic of the economy and politics, how they interact, is to be super objective about it. And I think that's just so critical. So as things were really taking off and I was getting hired all over the place and it was really exciting, I got a call from someone who said, "How would you like to serve your country?" Now, that's a pretty tough one to turn down. But my role was really unique. I was the very first chief market intelligence officer for a really kind of obscure agency in Washington, D.C. So we're a little bit outside of the craziness of the White House, but we still were impacted by the things that were going on there. And for me, it was an opportunity to learn about how government works from the inside, which I didn't have that on my resume. So I was really keen to understand that. But then also it gave me the opportunity to interact at the highest level of U.S. government with the top financial officials. So I'm talking about the Federal Reserve. I'm talking about the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, talking about the CFTC, that's where I worked, but also the U.S. Treasury and other agencies. So from that standpoint, it was invaluable. I mean, it's just amazing what you learn about how these agencies interact, what they do, all of the committees that are there, the focus that they do, and the wonderful work they actually create, the research that they create, which is just fantastic.
So you did your contract, a year-long contract, and then you came back out into the world of speaking. And I want to talk later in the interview about what changed for you the second time around, because I think there's some interesting things there. But as the great calmer downer, I would love to hear from you. So what's going on right today? And I apologize because this may air later in December, and things may have changed significantly. As we know, everything is day to day in politics right now. Talk to us about how the economy would be affected if indeed there was an impeachment. And I guess we would say not just an impeachment, but a removal from office. Can you speak about that?
Yeah.
Because I know that their impeachment means one thing to the economy, but then removal from office probably means something different, right?
Correct. And I think this is a question that always comes up, and there's a lot of confusion about it. And especially for people outside the country, I apologize that you're viewing all of our politics and watching this very political drama play out in Washington, D.C. So first of all, impeachment is, of course, a political act. It's a decision by the House of Representatives to review something that the president has done for high crimes and misdemeanors. And it's very broad. That's the way the Constitution laid it out on purpose, because it gave the House the opportunity to bring this up. Impeachment only means that they're forwarding this digression by the president onto the Senate to actually hold a trial. And that'll be really fun. A lot of pageantry involved with that. The Supreme Court justice will sit as judge over this. And then, of course, the jury is all 100 senators. So which is the majority Republican. So it's right. Is that not true? So it's very unlikely that it will actually pass the Senate. And you have to get to a supermajority to pass it. So the bottom line is this: cover your ears if you don't want to know the outcome, because I'm going to tell you the end of the movie. The president gets impeached. That's going to happen. The president will not likely be convicted. And that's why when you look at the financial markets and the economy, it's really not making an impact other than delaying other business that the Congress should be getting to. So in other words, the nation kind of views this, the markets, the economy views this as the Clinton administration impeachment. In other words, you're not going to see much change in anything in Washington, D.C., or in the economy or in the markets from this political drama.
Right. And we can go back in history and just kind of look at various things to see how that affects. Okay.
Yeah, and so I want to be really clear about this.
Sure.
I don't have an axe to grind. I mean, this president causes a lot of concern on a wide range of people on a wide range of issues. If you believe that he should be removed from office, I totally understand that. If you believe that this is completely trumped up charges, no pun intended, I totally understand this. My viewpoint is just like, what does this do for the economy overall?
What does this
and that's
mean?
all I'm approaching this as.
And that's really the purpose for this show.
Right.
And we really don't know what's going to happen. Something crazy could happen because it happens every day, right?
Oh, yeah.
We really don't know. Okay, so I have had many clients come to me saying, I'd like to kind of recession-proof my career. What could I be doing to recession-proof my career? Do we call you an economist, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay. As an economist, do we also call you a futurist? Or kind of blend that term together, maybe?
I mean, you could say that. I mean, just because I end up giving people a glimpse into what the future can hold. That's the biggest payoff I can provide.
Okay. So let's say, as a futurist economist, tell us what you see on the horizon when it comes to recession. Is this coming?
So I would say this, that's not necessarily the right question. The right question is, what kind of recession are we going to get?
Oh.
Because I will tell you right now, if you define a recession as slower growth, we're in slower growth. If you look at manufacturing in the United States and agriculture in the United States, you're in a recession. It is really slow growth. They're being both negatively impacted by the trade war that's going on with China. So
Right.
broadly speaking, you really want to define recession as like, what does it look like? Because that will dictate how you approach it. My view is that for the United States, this will be very difficult for it to be an abrupt, sharp recession, primarily because the unemployment rate is so low. And with that rate so low and workers still having jobs, consumer spending is not going to stop anytime soon. So as we get through the holidays, yes, we'll see consumers still spend. Into the new year, the first quarter, second quarter, it's going to be slow growth. So that's really what you have to prepare for. And of course, as speakers, of which I am one, that's a business component that I really look at. So how do you prepare yourself for that? How do you get ready for that? Well, you start looking at who's hiring you, what areas are hiring you, like what specific parts of the sectors of the economy, and would they, are these the sectors that have been ramped up rapidly, like technology? Could they come down pretty hard? Sure. But if you're in the agriculture space and in the manufacturing space, you're already seeing that these companies are probably going, boy, if I can cut a cost, I'm going to.
Right.
So I think to recession proof yourself, you have to recognize that, but you also have to do this. You have to say, hey, here's what I can deliver for you and why, even if there's a recession, you need this information. You need me to come and talk about sales or leadership, because during the tough times, it's really when you need this information to make better decisions about what you're going to do going forward.
Right, which means that you need to show more value than before,
Yes.
more of how they cannot live without you helping them to solve this problem. And maybe for instance, if you've got a lot of your eggs, pun intended, in the agricultural basket, and we know that farmers are hurting. They're hurting here in Canada. They're hurting there in the United States. That might mean maybe a little bit of a pivot for you. What if would you, for instance, be looking at, well, who serves agriculture? Is there a role that I might be able to play for them to try to help with what's going on? I mean, there's pivots that could potentially be made to try to serve your community the best you can.
Yeah, and I think that's key. So much of this is preparation. One of the things that I try, and you do too, Jane, which is great about your podcast and the work that you do, but one of the major messages that I deliver to audiences is this. A lot of the bad things that people worry about haven't happened yet, but you have time now to adjust and plan for those things. I'm not saying, get the shotgun shells and beef jerky and head up to the hills. But what I'm saying is like, hey, what would it look like if a sector dropped significantly for me and all of my business was in that sector?
Right.
Like, gosh, maybe I should diversify. Maybe I should start to upvalue some of the things that I do, add things onto it. And even if that's just a run in place, that would be a good exercise to go through. Can you be more efficient in what you do? Can you bring on technologies to make you more efficient, to help you in the sales process? I mean, these are things that I am just diving into right now.
You're personally doing that, and I can't wait to talk about, your kind of before and your after. So we've got kind of three industries to be really keeping a close eye on. Technology, I think maybe we should always be keeping an eye on, because like you said, what goes up fast is also, and we've seen the technology bust before, right? Agriculture and manufacturing. Is there anything we should be adding to this list? And then people can kind of be going, oh yeah, okay, that's one that I've been thinking about moving into. Maybe I should steer in a different direction.
Well, energy is going to be one as well.
Okay.
And, I've spent at andrewbusch.com, we do a lot of research on key issues in the 2020 election, because I wanted to learn about what all the different Democratic candidates were putting forward for policy, because I thought it's such a fascinating time, and they're putting forward a lot of ideas that haven't put forward before. So I wanted to do a deep dive into every one of the top 5 candidates. which we've done. But one of the things that spilled out from that, of course, when you do your research is you go, holy smokes, they really want to change energy. And this is for Canada and the United States. It would have a serious impact, a serious change to that industry because they want to ban fracking. And 40%, and they can do it in a lot of different ways. Legally, you can't ban fracking, but what they want to do is make it really difficult to do on public land, and that's 40% of energy policy or production. So just as another place to kind of look, energy is a big one into the 2020 election.
Right, and there again is a very divisive conversation. Right? We could go down the road of pro and. But I think that you present things in a very neutral manner. So thank you for doing that. And you're going to have to update because you have 2 new candidates. Bloomberg just got in the race, and I forget the other guy.
Steyer. Steyer joined. Tom Steyer joined, and he's a billionaire spending a bunch of money. But there's
somebody else.
New governor from, or a previous governor from Massachusetts who joined.
Good friends with Obama. I can't remember his name, but anyway.
We can talk about the outcome of that primary down the road if you want in this podcast, because it's really fun. I have a very different take on that. But overall, where do I see opportunities? It won't matter if there's a Democrat or Republican as president. Environmental issues will continue to draw interest and potential for speakers because of what's going on in the world, what's going on with global climate change, whatever you want to call it. People are more in tune to that. They really want to see changes. And you're going to see an opportunity there for speakers to get into that space.
So socially responsible companies.
That's right.
But also we see a lot of other social responsibility with relationships to humans. Diversity and inclusion and things like that are also areas that I think affect us.
And you're seeing that in investment too. So there's a specific area, there's an acronym that goes with it. I'm blanking on it right now, but I mean, this is where a lot of investment is flowing. So just as an example, if you use the financial markets to say, well, what's happening, what's interesting, just look to see where money's going. And
so where is money? Tell me, where is money going? I'm curious.
Social responsibility, environmental governance, all of these things. Can't believe I can't remember the name of this thing. But anyway, so that's another little thing that I use to help guide me on where I see potential growth opportunities.
Okay, what do you think of cryptocurrency? Have you spoken about this? Did you have to speak about blockchain at one of the conferences that you did? I can't remember if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes. So my agency was the agency in the U.S. government that approved the very first Bitcoin futures contract.
Oh.
And so I was face planted into this. I'm like knee deep in it. People do hire me to talk about this on a broad basis and kind of coach them through not only cryptocurrencies, but really blockchain as a technology. So it's fascinating, and talk about billions of dollars flowing into that area. It is really evolving so quickly. It's hard to keep up, even for somebody who knows what they're doing. It's the craziest language. Things are so different in there.
What do you think
tiny component of the economy? So
what do we as speakers need to know about it?
The only thing that you need to know about it is that there's a lot of interest in it. It's waned depending on the price of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin starts to shoot up again, everybody's going to be jumping up and down about it. But it's calmed down significantly because the price of Bitcoin has calmed down significantly.
Okay.
So it's something that was really hot in 2017 into 2018 and then cooled significantly into 2019.
So if someone offers to pay us in Bitcoin.
That's right.
That's a negatory?
Well, it depends on how much they pay you, right? I mean, that's the key.
That's funny. I actually have a prospective client who I think does a podcast about this. So that's very interesting. Okay, let's I want to direct people to your website again because of the research that you've done. You've got lots and lots of research out there. You've got lots of research out there on the candidates. And I think, but there's all kinds of other information about the economy. Let's direct them there again.
Sure. It's andrewbusch.com. So it's Busch. So it's like the beer, not the president. And you can just click on the research page and you can get it. It's all free.
Yeah.
So I do research. I mean, I have specific clients who hire me for some consulting that I do, but I try to generate that research for two reasons. One, I want to learn myself. And two, I want to use it as a way to draw people to the site. So I post this on not only my website, but I put it out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Medium, which is a new place for a lot of people to utilize to put out research. And these are deeper dives. These are not like 2-page, 1-page papers. These are 10 to 12-page papers on the candidates and on specific issues. And so it develops your reputation for being an expert in this space when you do this intensive work.
Right. And reputation indeed you have. So let's talk about the formula, I guess we'll call it, that you put together. How helpful has it been? So you had picked a lane a long time ago, but really when we first started talking years ago, you could have spoken on lots of different topics, but you actually did kind of pick a lane and you decided to become kind of like I'm going to tell you about the economy, but then I'm going to share with you what you can do with it, which I thought was really incredible, how you really prescribed something from that. But you developed this formula for people that they could then take and use. Talk a little bit about how powerful it is to have your own tool.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's unique that I do. While I was in U.S. government, I came across a lot of brilliant people, and one of which was a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Robert Shiller from Yale. And he's created the Case-Shiller Home Price Index and also wrote a book called Irrational Exuberance. He's written many, many articles, many books. But in 2017, he wrote a paper called Narrative Economics. This changed the way that I approach things because it isn't just about data. It's about the stories that people tell themselves about the economy that drives behavior. And so I decided, I was like, look, I'm going to take this and I'm going to model this. And I'm going to show people how these big stories and themes drive economic activity. And therefore, you can use it and frame it in a way that lets you say, well, this is really important, this is less important, and this is even least important. But you need that as a context or framework to understand the world. And so that's what I did. I can dive into some of the specifics, but that's the thing that's unusual about me. I don't have graphs of GDP or any of those things. I have 5 slides that I put up about this particular model that I created, and they're really fun and they're really easy to grasp. And I think that's the wonderful component of what's changed for me.
Right. What's the model called?
The Opportunity Money Model.
OMM.
That's right.
Opportunity Money Model. So I want people to be thinking about what they know and how they might be able to name it or create a tool from it or what have you, because I think that that's really important. Okay, so we're kind of switching gears from the economy over to your business and what changed pre-White House and post-White House.
Well, I wasn't in the White House.
I know.
We'll
say pre-Washington, pre-Washington and post-Washington.
That sounds good.
That sounds better. Okay. You are doing your business differently this time, and it was just that you didn't want to sit and wait for it to come to you. You're like, okay, I'm going to be more proactive this time. So let's talk about some of the steps that you've taken in order to really start to be more proactive.
Sure. Well, first of all, the way that I approached it previously was, you did some of the basic blocking and tackling as a speaker. One, you get up on e-speakers because they have 20 speaker bureaus that have your profile popped up on their screen. So that's a great thing. But I also reached out to all the major speaker bureaus, whether I deserved to be there or not, it didn't matter. But I found some people and really connected up to a couple of big ones. One in particular that hired me several times through 2013 to 2016. So that was great. But it was still just kind of like the way that I marketed myself was, I did some stuff on Twitter. I wrote research and I put it out on Constant Contact. And I had a fairly large database to draw from my previous work in the private sector. But it just didn't feel like I was hitting the right people. It wasn't targeted enough. And so now I've radically changed the way that I approach the business. I've made investments in it, you being one of the central ones. So, and that has been very helpful. But then I also invested in a technology company called SpeakerFlow. And that has gotten me into things like CRM, which is customer relationship management technology. And I utilize HubSpot for that. And it's fantastic. I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but like, look, if you knew how wonderful this system is and how you can specifically and efficiently include people in it and then be able to market to them, I think you'll really enjoy the benefits. I'm already seeing, just from the little dabbling I've been doing recently as I've dove into this, I'm already seeing payoffs from it.
Let's talk about what were you doing before to keep track of your customers? And we, by the way, have a podcast episode with SpeakerFlow. So if anybody wants to dive into all the systems that somebody's going to need, please check out that podcast. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. Here you are, a very successful speaker, probably working with some of the bigs in terms of the bureaus. And by the way, you did deserve to be there. And your fee and everything was in line, and you were right for that. But what were you doing before? Were you keeping track of it all on spreadsheets or something?
Yeah, in Excel, pretty much. You know, and that was it. And the thing that you miss from that is as you track your speeches and when they occur, that's really interesting, because then you begin to see when people start booking. Mm-hmm. You know, we started talking about agriculture, right? And this year was, in September, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to have a typical really quiet November and December, because that's when why would anybody book then? And then all of a sudden I started to get pinged from different groups and people reaching out directly from agricultural groups. And I was like, gee, duh, why are they asking me now? And then you think about it, well, because
they quiet down and
are out of the fields and at home.
Yeah.
Right.
They quiet down in November. And by the way, a typical speaker is actually busy in November, but not in December necessarily.
Yeah. So this is going to be the busiest December I've ever had. So that's really exciting for me. But it's those things that you start to think about and you're like, okay, well, if I start my marketing program in September and October, I could get a shot at those and be up on their radar screen for December and January and February.
Beautiful. And you cannot analyze an Excel spreadsheet in that same way. I mean, the beautiful information is there. You love HubSpot. We sometimes recommend as well Karma CRM for speakers.
Right.
We don't care what CRM you get, just get one. And here's the key to it: use it. You are obviously using it. And I think working with SpeakerFlow has probably helped you get it set up faster and use it faster, correct?
Yeah, and that's one of the investments that I made in the business. So that was my second one, and I think it was really critical. And those guys have been great. They've walked me through a lot of things. But you're right. Once you get the thing, you can't go, I'm just going to put it off to the side and have a couple of calls with these guys. That's not the way it works. You really have to invest time into it.
Yes.
But then you start to get the payoff from it, and it's really fun. I mean, it's like every day you wake up and you're like, okay, who am I going to contact? Who can I get in a sequence? This is really cool, right? And you get kind of nerded out by it. So it's fun.
Oh, that's so cute. You're adorable. Okay, now you've also invested. Okay, so one of the things that I had recommended to you early on was what we call as-if thinking. And so you set a financial goal for the entire year. Here's what I want to make in 2020. And you started to invest in your speaking business as if you already had reached that goal. Right. And a part of that was leveling up even with the speech. And Chris West, who we're going to be doing a 2-hour workshop here with shortly, and maybe done by the time this rolls, Chris West of Video Narrative, you decided to get involved with him. Talk about how Video Narrative has helped you, not just with video, but with the story idea that will lead to a great video.
Yeah, and I think this is really critical because you can, like, you guys don't know me, but I have a deep background in theater. Like I've got 10,000 hours in acting and directing, everything in the theater, right? So performance wise, I'm super comfortable on stage, as you could probably tell. But the thing that I didn't have was to craft a great story, right? And craft a great speech. I mean, I can walk people through all sorts of slides and graphs and talk about the economy, a lot of different things, politics the same way. But can you craft a story that captivates an audience so that they can hear what you're saying, take it in, and remember it? That's the thing that I was missing. So when you suggested, hey, you should look at a wide range of people for videos, and especially take a look at Chris, I was like, okay, boy, when you get the price tag, you're like, whoa, that's expensive, right? So I totally get it if people don't want to drop that number, and it's big.
Sure.
But it's not just a video. And that's the thing I want to emphasize for people. Really start to think about how you can improve your delivery, your content of the great information that you have in a way that your audience can take it in, drink it in, really enjoy it, and walk away and remember what you're telling them. That's the trick. That's the huge value add that Chris has on top of the wonderful, representations of your speeches from the videos that they capture and so on. So I will say this. I'm just about halfway through the process with Chris. I'm accumulating a lot of video, but the first thing we worked on was the content, and we collaborated together to take a couple of speeches that I had, rework them into one speech, and deliver something that's powerful. So I'm super excited to get more of this video for him. I've done the speech about 4 or 5 times now already, and the audience is they love it, especially the intro stuff. It's just so much fun.
And this is the difference between all of the other economists, money people out there. You are coming at this like a craft. So I encourage people who are, let's say you want a gold medal at the Olympics, and people just want to put bums in seats by having you come and talk to them. Or I've had lots of athletes, professional athletes or actors, when they actually take the time to craft their presentation, it is such a brilliant surprise for the audience, because you would not believe how low the bar is set for someone who's coming in to talk about the economy.
Right.
Right?
And so when
true. When you craft it and you tell stories, and the people are like, what? This guy is blowing our mind. And that's where you are going to get more and more and more spin-off from every single engagement that you do. And mark my words, everybody, Andy Busch is going to be someone whose name you are going to be sharing the stage with a lot in the future. And, you're started, your momentum is already going, but it's rockets from here.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a pretty high bar. I mean, I know what I want for 2020. I set a bar of 25 speeches. Now that's a lot. Now I had a good start to getting back into speaking, which was great, but I really feel so much more confident specifically about the content. Like, I know I'm going to blow away any economist, and my background now has the validity to it that was missing as far as being part of, a big agency or the Federal Reserve or whatever agency out there or thing that you needed to do to generate credibility for you in my space. I've done that now. Right. And now I understand how this stuff works, but I'm so much better at communicating. The delivery is good, but the content is king on this. So it's so much fun to get into. So I know I've got that advantage. I've just got to get that out. Now, I will tell you what's interesting is going through this, I'm still getting hired. And it wasn't until recently that I just put together a video just to have some highlights of the recent speech before Chris delivers his wonderful stuff.
Right.
And even from that,
you're getting it.
I'm getting hired. And that's what's crazy about this. Like, I'm just like, really?
Well, when they're booking economists, they're not looking for somebody who's going to be this this fantastic. They're just like, can he hold his own on stage? Okay, yep, we checked that box. You're in.
Yeah. Will people not fall asleep? I think that's the bar.
Yeah, that's where the bar sits. So I think you're in really, really amazing shape, and I'm so excited for you. You've done that. You've literally walked this talk that we've been talking about as if thinking, and you have invested in your business. I heard somebody say the other day that you should spend as much as one speech on your video. So if you want to charge $20K for a speech, you spend $20K on the video. So that's just kind of an earmark idea. If your fee is $3,500, then maybe you look at that being your budget, and just some little piece of food for thought. Okay. What else do we need to leave people with? Because you're the good news guy. I want you to give me a little dose of, don't worry, people. Let's use Taylor Swift's "You Need to Calm Down" about all of this. Talk to us. Final thoughts in terms of what's ahead for the politics and the economy and money.
Sure. So just to wrap this up, but what I always tell people is look, it's everything sounds horrible right now because we're living in this age, right? I will tell you, there are bad things that have gone on for a long time. I mean, historically, if you go back, I mean, some of the actions within the beginning of the U.S. government were worse than this. I know you can't believe that, between Adams and Jefferson and the way that they used newspapers and what they said about each other back then. So I just keep that in perspective. There are always challenges that are out there. There are always potentially bad things that could occur. Right now there's tremendous focus on the environment, and I think that's wonderful. We should be thinking about the environment. But ladies and gentlemen, go back to the 1950s. And we're talking about existential threats of nuclear bombs and what that did to people's psyche and how they spent money or how they looked at the economy. Yeah. I mean, was it worse then, or is it? I mean, it's hard to say. It's
Talk about constant. Fear, right? It's just a different fear.
Yeah, different fear. So what I would say is keep that in mind and really plan ahead in the sense of knowing that we've gone through this extraordinarily long, positive economic growth cycle in the United States. It's slowing down. And it's likely to stay slower than what it's been recently. So I would say prepare for that. Mm-hmm. Don't stick your head in the sand. Don't say, oh, it's politics, I don't want to hear about that. No, take the opposite approach. Go, okay, that's what's going on. Well, here's my game plan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm ready to put some of this in action right now because I'm going to adjust for the future. So that's what I tell people. Plan for the future. Adjust now because you can.
I love it. I love it. Now, final thing,